Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
It's 2 p.m. Thank you so much for tuning in to Nedbank Business Watch this Wednesday afternoon. My name is Fiso Ngumal and I'm with Lungalele Makakula. Happy to have you join us on the show this afternoon. We do have quite the show for you. It's going to inform you on the latest business developments that you need to know today. As we continue with the show today, you will get to learn about some of the agricultural finance solutions that Nedbank has to offer you, some of which you urgently need. Look, Lulu, we always know the Kingdom of Eswatini, just like many other countries in the world, is confronted by climate change impacts. We recently had a very, very heated discussion as a whole society in Eswatini around the energy crisis. That is, part of what we saw with, our efficiency and sufficiency of energy. But Nedbank says they have solutions to help all our farmers in Eswatini go through these trying times and make sure that they rise above. Andile Masangane, Business Development Officer, joins us in studio today to shed light on those developments. Also, later on the show, we will take a look at the market dynamics, looking at the numbers of the day, decoding what they mean for investors and what they mean for you. So do stay tuned on the program. A very good afternoon once again. Thank you for tuning in.
That's right. Good afternoon to our viewers. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Lungelele Bagakwela. We have quite a lot in store for you this afternoon. Today in the studio, we'll be joined by in-house economist Sanele Sbia. We will be discussing the 2024-2025 performance report for the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade. There's quite a few of highlights from that report, such as that the government has a huge support for SMMEs. And as of September 2024, loans amounting to 54 million Malangeni have been distributed across various sectors, creating 27 jobs, bringing to the total of 3,084 jobs in the country. Stay tuned for this interview with Sanele Sbia. For now, let's go straight to our first story.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Welcome back. You tuned into Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for staying with us. Let's go to our first story.
And our first business story today, at the end of last month, the world was shook by the decision taken by United States President Donald Trump on suspending foreign aid. And for Eswatini, some programs were affected just like many other countries. Now, most of Eswatini who are employed by NGOs funded by PEPFAR have had their salaries affected by the suspension. And that has led to a temporarily, work stop for a lot of employees under these NGOs, which is something that is very frustrating and concerning. The chairperson of the Eswatini Bankers Association, Vuselelo Fagutse, has given clarity on how banks are going to handle cases of those who have loans with the different banks in the country. Let's listen.
It's not a matter that we've discussed at an association level because each bank has its own way of managing risk. But at a industry level, one thing I can say is that the banks are used to uncertainty. You know, COVID came, nobody knew what was going to happen during COVID. And what we did, we went into our systems, we delayed repayments of certain loans because some people lost jobs, some people are not being paid. A lot happened during COVID, and we learned a lot from that. So I would want to imagine that most banks are going to apply the more cautious route. The US government has not said they're not going to fund this. They've put a pause for 90 days. After that 90 days, some programs may continue, some programs may not continue. So our view, I think, would be, our advice would be for people to individually speak to their own banks, but also for the NGOs to have a conversation with their banks about what they expect this process to be and what it should lead to. But in the meantime, I would want to believe that we are very understanding as a banking industry. We're not going to say because you've lost your job, you know, we're going to call up all your facilities against you. But rather, we probably allow the window of 90 days that the US government has put before these NGOs, and then decide further action once the decision has been made about whether or not to continue funding. I know, for instance, some programs within that are funded by the US are now continuing, or some of them have been allowed to continue. So we cannot just then issue a blanket statement to say everyone is affected in the same way. It does create uncertainty, but the environment is used to uncertainty. So I believe that we're resilient enough to be able to deal with it.
With a continued rise in money laundering, disseminated amounts totaling at over 735 million emalangeni in the financial year 2024-2025, as stated by the Ministry of Finance's annual report for the period under review. We talked to the Eswatini Financial Intelligence Unit to get to understand their work in combating money laundering. Calvin Dlamini, Head of Compliance, outlined the part they play as over 4,000 cases of suspicious transactions have been reported with the unit this government financial year.
We are a state-owned entity tasked with safeguarding the Eswatini and international financial system. So we do this by receiving financial disclosures from accountable institutions, analyze these financial disclosures if need be, and then we disseminate intelligence report to our law enforcement agencies. So we are a creature of statute. We are established by Section 19 of the Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing Prevention Act of the country. So basically that's what we do. We are trying to protect the financial system of the country. Generally, we've got the Money Laundering Act, so we are the regulator. So we've got accountable institutions which have to comply with the requirements, the compliance obligations entrenched in the in the Act. So we want to ensure that all accountable institutions do comply with the provisions of the Money Laundering Act. So we work hand in hand with the institutions like the Central Bank and the FSRA and law enforcement agencies. I mean, the country has been tested by other international organizations to check if we are compliant with these international standards. Yes, the country was found wanting. However, I'm happy to say we have initiated amendments into our law, and it has been gazetted, so to close those technical compliance issues. So November 31, a gazette was issued amending the Money Laundering Act. We are now compliant with international standards. Yeah, I think we have safeguards to ensure, because we are dealing with critical state issues. So we have got robust systems to safeguard this critical information.
Yeah, and that is our business news. We cap it off there. There's more on the show after the break.
Yeah. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. This is Nedbank Business Watch. The Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade is a key driver in the facilitation of an enabling environment for economic growth and equitable prosperity for all in the country. With the ministry having tabled their annual report in Parliament, in-house economist Sanele Sibia joins us to unpack how the ministry has worked to improve the business environment in the country. Mrs. Sibia, very good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Perhaps let's just unpack this performance report. Support for SMEs remains a priority for government still, and as of September 2024, loans amounting to 54 million Malangeni have been distributed across various sectors, creating 27 jobs and totaling to 3,084 jobs in total. Is this a positive for the economy? Afternoon once again, Mr. Sibia. Thank you for joining us. As of September 2024, loans amounting to 54 million have been distributed to various sectors in the country, creating 27 jobs, totaling to over 3,000 jobs created last year. Is this a positive for the economy?
Good afternoon, Lungalele. Oh yes, when we look into the issue of access to finance, and with government doing what they can to ensure that small, medium enterprises do get access to finance, as we know that that's one of the major problems that our SMEs have to deal with in the country, the issue of adequate financing for their business endeavors. So we do note that this one is a positive outcome that the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade has been able to attain this year, but we do hope and we do push for that full utilization of such schemes, including the export and the other guarantee schemes that the government has in place.
So there's quite a bit of highlights from the report. Let's just get into cooperatives. How crucial are cooperatives in the development of the economy? The report reveals that the sector has expanded and their asset value has increased to 3 billion Malangeni. How crucial are cooperatives in the country?
Cooperatives play a crucial role in the economic development of a country and also in the financial depth and breadth, in the depth and breadth of the financial sector, and also in financial inclusion. As you will know, that usually cooperatives are owned by the members who then benefit from those. But also they play a crucial role in resource mobilization and in finance mobilization. And they do improve this access to capital. For example, if we are part of a multi-purpose cooperative, then we are able to, as a conglomerate, go and borrow money and then come back and probably distribute amongst ourselves. And we all push those businesses that ideally, if we didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to do it on my own. So they do offer that sort of security in terms of going to borrow, because we do tend to act as security on one another. That's in the sense of what a multi-cooperative society would do. But when you look into the other ones, the more common ones that we have, they do play a crucial role in terms of access to finance and cheaper loans or cheaper access to finance, where the interest rates within a cooperative are relatively lower compared to what a bank would be offering you for that very same loan. And that is crucial for driving both demand and production in an economy, depending on why members would want to borrow that money from the cooperative.
Yeah. So the report continues to unpack APA's success or achievements. It says APA facilitated over 3 billion Malangeni in capital investments, with 98% from foreign direct investment and 2% from domestic direct investment. Why is it important for APA to strengthen relationships with investors?
Investors are actually quite critical and quite crucial in terms of ensuring that every country is able to follow and chart a path towards that level of productive capacity and capability. So what we need to ensure is we do need as a country to have those beautiful relations with both domestic and international investors in order to help us push our development agenda. So it becomes crucial managing those investors because investors are always looking for a place where they are going to be making more money. And if you are not doing your work in keeping them here, there is always someone else out there who's always offering something competitive, something else, because we all want investors, because since capital formation is quite crucial to the growth of any economy. And usually that is what investors bring on board, that gross capital formation. And also they do bring that skill, which you may not necessarily have domestically. So we do need investors really for those things.
How can we continue to improve Eswatini's business environment and attractiveness to investors, Mrs. Bia?
I think the report does outline the issue, the fact that we do have issues around competitiveness. So what we need is to actually get to a point where we are competitive. So now that is going to be competitiveness in terms of the package that we offer to investors, and also in terms of over and above the package, it has to be competitiveness in terms of the the registration processes and the ability for a business to come and set up in the country and be able to operate in the country. So what we need to do in that case is to ensure that we are investing in dealing with our supply side bottlenecks. We've seen, for example, the Prime Minister in one of his travels trying to get fertilizer companies to come and produce domestically. So that would somehow improve the supply side of the economy so that it's quite relatively easy to go into farming. So we need such initiatives so that our supply side is relatively easier to respond to these shocks, to other shocks in the market, and it's relatively easier for one to then operate. And another issue that we need to understand as a country, Lungelele, is the fact that we are just 4 hours by road and 35 minutes by air from South Africa. So what we need to think about is finding a competitive advantage. So when we are designing our investor plans and investor strategies, we don't need necessarily to think, generic as everyone else would think. We need to change our strategy a bit. We need maybe probably to change the way we do things instead of investing in infrastructure when we do not have a secured investor in itself may not necessarily be a good thing. Investing this continuous investment in road infrastructure when we are not seeing that return on that investment, otherwise might not necessarily help, but it does help package us as a better investment destination. And then also we need to change the packages that we give out to our investors, move away from this tax holiday type of thinking into a value proposition kind of incentive, saying that no, we are going to give you this and this and this benefit only if you invest so much and employ so much of our people or involve so much of our domestic producers. That way, you are also chipping into the citizens' empowerment zone.
Yeah. Another achievement that the report has highlighted, Mrs. Bia, is capital projects, particularly 6 strategic projects which were aimed at economic growth, such as the construction of factory shells in Hlangano, Pigs Peak and Nzevani. These are very critical for the economy, particularly because we recall that in 2021, some of them were burnt down due to the unrest. How critical are factory shells in the economy of Eswatini?
But so factory shells in themselves, Lungelele, they are quite critical. But that is what we need to fix in our model as a country. It is fine and well if we are going to have factory shells littered around the country and you are going to have people operating those factory shells. That way you're going to see a return on investment. It's not just an issue of building it and having it there. You build it, then you need a APA to go out there and make sure there is an investor. All right. And we need probably to build them because our models, the way it is, we need to build our factory shells in a way that they would be able to house virtually any business. I don't know if we would have that universal type of model because you don't want to say you have a shell for a person to come and use, but they would have to modify it so many times, right? So that's why I said probably what we need to do is work on getting the investor first, and then we come and construct the factory shell to their standards. But what we also need to do is understand that the factory shells in themselves, until and unless they are working, the only contribution they will have to economic growth is during the time when they are being constructed. But coming back to your point is, yes, we do need factory shells and we do need to decentralize out of the main hubs so that you take it to the rural areas. That way you are lowering the reservation wage because then people don't have to account for rentals and they don't have to account for transport and all those other issues that would then push the reservation up because I have to pay transport, I have to pay rent, I have to eat and I still have to take care of people at home. And it also decentralizes the entire development process. But crucial, again, I'm going back to the word, they need to be operated, not just built.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Bia, for your insight. As always, appreciated. That was in-house economist Sanele Bia just unpacking for us the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade's financial performance report for the year 2024-2025. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to the program, Agriculture Economy. Industry evolves, so too must the financial solutions that support it, right? Now, Nedbank's Eswatini Agriculture Division tailored finance solutions designed to meet the unique as well as the unpredictable demands of agribusiness, from renewable energy financing and tunnel farming support to short-term working capital and asset-based funding. The bank is positioning itself as a key enabler in the agriculture sector. Now, this afternoon, we unpack these financial solutions with Andile Masangane. He's been here before. He's Business Development Officer at Nedbank Eswatini. What is available? Who qualifies? And how can you, as a farmer or your friend who is a farmer, tap into these opportunities? The conversation starts now. Very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the program again, Andile. It's an interesting conversation because it ties in very well with what the country wants to do, particularly this financial year as well as, the previous years. They like to say, imfuyo, insila emaswati, or insika emaswati, I beg your pardon there, I stand to be corrected, but agriculture is the bedrock of our economy as the Kingdom of Eswatini, and you are right at the vantage point. You are driving all these solutions. Talk to me about the finance solutions that are available with Nedbank.
Thank you so much for having us, Mr. Ngumalo. Once again, siyabonga, siyavusela nasemakhaya. It's true. You're right in saying that agriculture is the bedrock of Eswatini's economy. And as Nedbank, we believe that we need to cater our solutions as per the market demands. And some of those market demands dictate that we need to be innovative in our solutions. So we do offer innovative industry finance solutions, which speak to renewable energy specifically. And in that regard, we offer solar financing to assist farmers in lowering cost, as we've seen over the years that electricity costs have risen. They've gone, in fact, from maybe being the third highest cost of production to one of the main costs of production. So we offer solar financing to assist our farmers in lowering those costs and being able to produce year in and year out. We also offer shade netting and tunnel farming for those farmers under crop production, where they can be able to maneuver past the adverse weather conditions that we sometimes have.
Right.
So those are some of the innovative finance solutions that we have, as well as others. We also speak to short-term finance solutions within the agri space. And these speak to more or less the seasonal nature of agriculture. We understand that there are some times where you'll have maybe a shortfall in cash and when you need that quick loan. So we offer those type of solutions in the form of overdrafts and production loans, again, to maintain production all year round. Yes, we also have, as well as specialized financial solutions for those that want to grow. We as Nedbank also believe that in business you should be growing as well. So it's very important that we cater to those clients under agriculture as well. And to that end, we speak to asset-based financing, and that can speak to the procuring of movable assets for farmer companies, for our agri clients as well. And that can speak to maybe getting that tractor that you need, that will help you lower costs, that vehicle to help with the ease of operations.
Right.
We also have medium-term loans that speak to maybe expansion, as mentioned or as alluded to earlier, that we encourage growth in agriculture. We encourage growth even outside of maybe the agricultural space. But speaking to agriculture, we offer medium-term loans to offer finance solutions to farmers wanting to extend maybe their farm or wanting to extend their orchard, maybe under citrus as well, or buy even new stock for those under livestock production. And maybe lastly, we can speak to long-term finance solutions, where we speak more, again, about diversification. You find that some of our clients want to maybe branch into logistics when they're in the sugarcane industry. So we offer that type of solution, maybe to get that vehicle for you to also help in lowering costs again as well. So these are some of the finance solutions that we offer at Nedbank, Mr. Ngumalo.
Very comprehensive solutions, because part of the modern day problem is that more often than not, people who say they offer solutions, they offer not necessarily a comprehensive or an umbrella of solutions that is all-encompassing. But I'm glad to learn that, you start from solar financing and, of course, the energy crisis right now. In fact, it has been a growing debate in the country that we are confronted by a very, very frustrating and concerning, energy crisis. So I think it's comforting to learn that our agriculture sector sort of has solutions towards, these problems that continue to persist. But also, you spoke of shade netting. I think that's quite brilliant, considering the climate change impacts that we continue to see every day. And of course, the short-term finance solutions, as well as the other specialized finance solutions that you speak of. I think that is very important. And I'm sure our viewers at home are happy to learn about these solutions. So you do want to, visit your nearest Nedbank branch and learn about these solutions and get the help that you need as soon as possible. But the conversation continues. There's a lot to unpack. Sectors of agriculture need support. Let's speak about that, because I understand the different types of production, from crop, livestock and poultry production, etc., etc. Speak to me about, which sectors of agriculture indeed need this support.
We try to look at it from a holistic point of view, Mr. Ngumal. So we don't limit ourselves maybe to a certain sector within the agricultural space. We do have clients under crop production, which in that area we speak to maybe sugarcane farmers, horticultural farmers, and maybe conventional crops as well. We also have livestock production clients, where we also speak to, again, poultry, your cattle, as well as piggery. So we try to look at the whole agricultural space and cater our solutions as to the needs of the client at the time. We also have clients under forestry. As well. We do understand that it is part of agriculture, so we do cater. We do have finance solutions to cater to that as well as value addition. We understand maybe as Nedbank that not everyone will be going on the farm to farm. So there has to be maybe that niche that you find yourself and fit into that. So we look also into the value addition of the agricultural products, where we speak to the client and have a sit down with them and understand what they would like to do, how they would like to do it, and the time frames in which they'd like to do it as well, to cater that solution to them specifically. So we look at the whole agricultural sector and try to cater our financial solutions for all those.
I appreciate the fact that the solutions value chain seems to be, very interlinked. The production process, speaks to some of the solutions that you mentioned earlier. Yes. I think me and you, before we came on air, we spoke about the fact that you came all the way from Big Bend, where it was sunny and hot. You come into Mbabane, you find that it's raining. Yes. And I do see how, shade netting could be very, very necessary in many parts of the low veld. But also, you speak about the crop production and, sugarcane, very, very dominant in the low veld as well. I don't know the fragmentation of, crops according to regions, but I do know that it's different per region because of, the climatic changes there. So we really appreciate that you sort of support literally every aspect of the production. But how do people access these finance solutions? That is the big question.
Yes, thank you for that question, Mr. Ngumalo. Well, we currently have our team or our agric department housed in Matsapa under the wholesale department. So clients can walk in there straight. However, we do have officers in different branches within the country. Myself, as you mentioned, that in Big Bend, we also have someone in Simunye who also looks at agriculture. And as well, it doesn't mean that just because we're in these maybe 3 places at the moment, the clients can't get help if they maybe sometimes go to Tlangano, for example. There are officers there that can be able to assist our clients as to per their needs. So we try to cater as well to all our clients from different areas within the country. At the moment, we are housed where there's a bit more of the activity in terms of agriculture in Eswatini, which is Big Bend, as you mentioned. There's the mill as well as in Simunye. So we can be found in Matsapa, we can be found in Big Bend or any other branch in Eswatini.
Okay, thank you so much. I do want us to, say these numbers, these contact details. I do see here that under the contact details, under Matapa Lifestyle. There's Mkhululi Kumalo on 7808 8169. Big Bend branch, I beg your pardon. There's Andile Masangane, who's here in studio with us. You can find him on 7802 9869. And then there's Bushleni and Simunye branch where Mtutuzi Dlamini will be of assistance there on 7802 9846.
Yes.
That's right, Andile.
Yes, this is true. You can contact us on those numbers. We are available to assist farmers at any given moment. So farmers should, clients actually should feel free to come to the branch or contact us via these numbers. We do have requirements that we ask of the clients when they come through.
Right.
That is for new and existing clients as well. In terms of new clients, we do require that you have a detailed business plan as well as cash flow projections. And for existing clients, we require that you have a business proposal and as well as your annual financial statement, as well as the cash flow projections. And for all clients, we also require that you have the statutory or mandatory documents. Company
makes
documents,
sense.
yes.
Andile Masangan is the business development officer under Nedbank Eswatini. We have covered everything that you need to know. So the onus is on you now. Do get in touch with them on the numbers that we have already mentioned. Thank you for staying with us. Let's go for a net break. The show continues, Masbuya.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch. We continue with the program. The banking sector remains the largest reporter of suspicious transactions at the Eswatini Financial Intelligence Unit, standing at 54% of the total suspicious transactions reported in the financial year 2024-2025, according to the Ministry of Finance annual report, with potential money laundered in the financial year under review estimated to be over 1 billion malengeni and disseminated amounts over 735 million in this period. Business journalist Nelsiwe Ndlamandla had a detailed interview with the chairperson of the Eswatini Bankers Association, Mvuselelo Fagutse, to find out what banks are doing to combat money laundering, as some of the monies were transacted through cross-border transactions.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Welcome to Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for being with us today. I want to know, what are you doing as banks to ensure that your members are complying with the anti-money laundering laws and policies in the country?
So what we do is that we partner with the central bank and within the banking industry as well, ensure that all staff in the banking sector are aware of the law and they are trained on a regular basis. This is a requirement that the central bank has put on all banks to comply with. And we always need to demonstrate what it is that we're doing to train our staff and our customers about money laundering. But also each bank is required to demonstrate what anti-money laundering procedures have been placed in how they vet their customers, how they analyze transactions that go through the banking infrastructure, and how they report exceptional cases. I think you're going to ask more questions about the EFIU, but there's a role that the EFIU plays, but there's a bigger role that we as banks play. But I think the difficulty that people have to, or Maswat have to keep in mind, is that we process hundreds of thousands, at times millions of transactions per day. So it's not easy for us to say that we know everything that customers do in their accounts. We provide infrastructure for people to do their business. Just like we allow you to deposit your salary and spend it the way that you want to, We only try to monitor exceptional transactions. You earn a salary of 50,000 a month and suddenly there's 100,000 deposit into your account. That triggers a suspicious transaction reporting, that there's a suspicious transaction that has happened in this particular customer's account. Go and investigate further to understand why or where that extra money comes from. We then inquire from that customer. If the customer demonstrates understanding of the legality of that money, we clear it. But if we don't understand, we report the transaction to the FIU as banks.
What is it that you are doing as banks to ensure due diligence in issues of suspicious transactions?
So due diligence is also a very important part of money laundering. So how we do due diligence is that when we onboard a customer as banks, we need to demonstrate that at the time that the customer opens an account, we understand who the customer is, which country they come from, because banking is open to both the Maswati and non-Swazis that live in Eswatini. Does the person have a work permit to live in Eswatini? If they are opening a personal account or business account, is the business registered? If you're an employee of a company, to have an employment contract that shows how much money you're going to earn. So we're required at the time of account opening to ensure that we understand the customer. If the customer is opening a business account, we need to understand what revenues are going to be flowing into that account. And we can see that customer grow as the business grows as well. And ultimately, who are the actual owners, what is called beneficiary or ultimate beneficiary ownership. We need to demonstrate that we know who the ultimate beneficiary owner of that money is, not just the people who are hired to sign on the bank account. So as banks were required to demonstrate the due diligence every time a customer opens an account with us. And this applies to all the banks, equally.
How does the Eswatini Bankers Association work with the Eswatini Financial Intelligence Unit to report or investigate potential money laundering cases?
So we are required, it's a very difficult situation as banks, because one, it is illegal to tip off a customer. So if I see that there's a suspicious transaction happening in your account, I can't tip you off as a customer. But generally, I will inform the EFIU that there's been an irregular transaction in this particular customer's account. I will draw that information. Our systems are designed such that they pick up those abnormal transactions and they get reported. In our interactions with our customers, we may come to know that actually the deposit maybe was from a deceased estate where the person was receiving a pension or something to that effect. Where we're able to demonstrate that we know where the money came from, we are then able to clear the transaction from being a suspicious transaction. But at the outset, if we pick up an abnormal activity in your account, we are required to report to the FIU. The FIU is then the one that consolidates all these submissions by banks and reports to law enforcement. We don't report directly to law enforcement as banks.
Are there any recent technological tools or innovations that banks in the country are using to prevent money laundering, Chairperson?
So each bank has its own method of picking up these abnormal transactions, and it's difficult for me to speak about each individual bank, but we are required by the regulator to ensure that we have systems in place to digitally pick up these transactions as they happen and that they are reported. And the EFIU and the central bank, working collaboratively, do come to do what is called AML inspections. So they look at our money laundering procedures and terrorism financing procedures as a bank to ensure that we're able to detect this before they happen. In addition, we all have a sanctions list. So there are people that are sanctioned by whether it's the US or the EU or the UK or the South African authorities or the Eswatini authorities. If a person has been sanctioned for terrorism financing or a person comes from a sanctioned country, those people are either not allowed to open accounts, or if they do, we do extra due diligence on those people to ensure that we understand what they do with their banking transactions.
What would you say about the state of money laundering in Eswatini? Are we seeing an increase or decline?
I wouldn't say that it would decline, because generally as the amount of money in circulation grows, there are going to be people that are also try to use the banking system. So we have robust procedures to ensure that we can detect it when it happens. but it's not all the time that you're going to pick up that now Mvuselelo was doing an illegal transaction. So if it fits within the profile of my deposits and payments, it could really disappear into the bigger scheme of things. People generally do these transactions by buying property, buying cattle, for instance. You can never know where that money comes from. When the person says they've sold cattle, that's it. Unless you are there to see the cattle, who bought them and all, we just have to work on trust that we know this person. They actually do have a head of cattle and they're able to account for it. So each bank has its own systems that enable it to pick it up. But if the minister says that the transactions are increasing, it means that they're seeing the data, because as each bank, you're not able to see what another bank is doing. But at the total government level, the FIU is able to consolidate all the reports and say, okay, there's an increase in this particular trade in the kingdom.
Are there any emerging technological challenges that local banks are facing which prevent them from complying with anti-money laundering policies and laws in the country?
The real issue is the cost of technology. The cost of doing this work is very expensive for banks because the first world countries are the ones that have the systems to do the detection, and these costs are denominated in dollars. So for banks to comply, they have to incur more money to deploy these systems in their environments to ensure they can pick this up. So it's more the cost of compliance, but the cost of the bank monitoring these activities amongst their customers.
As a parting shot, Chairperson, what would you say you will do as the Bankers Association to ensure that your members comply with the money laundering policies? Because we know that money laundering can have detrimental effects even on trade.
I think all I can say is that people who are laundering money are not welcome into the banking sector, and that if we do discover that you are laundering money, we are going to withdraw our services from you. You know, whether or not you are a big customer, if you are found to be doing something that is illegal, the banking sector is not open to that. And most importantly, we are not held to account only by the local authorities. We trade with other banks internationally. Our correspondent banks in the world look up to us to ensure that transactions that originate from Eswatini represent genuine, clean transactions. Now, if we're found wanting when it comes to money laundering, we can be stopped from transacting internationally because the banking sector is a closed circuit. So if people are doing something illegal in Eswatini, other countries are going to say we want to de-risk ourselves from that country and therefore will not allow transactions coming from that country. So we have a responsibility as a banking sector to ensure that at all times we can account for money that comes into our custody and that there's no money laundering or terrorism financing that's happening.
Siyabonga kakhulu, Chairperson, for joining us on the show, and thank you so much for always making time to speak to us.
The Eswatini Bankers Association, Vuselelo Fagute, speaking to journalist Nelson Ndlangamandla on the role played by the association to combat money laundering. After the break, we're joined by Toba for today's market analysis. Stay with us.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
This is the Market Analysis Nedbank Business Watch this Wednesday. Thank you for staying with us. We have Toba Kametse, Treasury Sales Manager at Nedbank Eswatini. He's going to help us unpack what the indices of the day are telling us. Geopolitical events continue to influence investor sentiment, of course, central bank policies, as well as some shifting economic data, and therefore global markets remain in flux. So let's listen to Toba, help us understand these numbers. Toba, very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the program. Maybe let's start with foreign exchange movements and global trends. We are seeing here Lilangeni moving against major counterparts today. Is this a reaction to broader emerging, market trends, or are there more localized sort of factors that are at play here?
Right, good afternoon, Sviso, and thank you once again for having me. So today we've seen the rand sort of weakened from early trade this morning, and you are right in saying that it is both local and international factors, local being South Africa, of course. So I'll start with just the South African backdrop to say that there's quite a lot of uncertainty in terms of uncertainty around the budget. We saw that the budget was postponed last week. There's also the rolling power cuts, even though those were paused or suspended rather today, but we're not sure when those will return. So all of that is weighing on the South African economy. And then internationally, you have the US president pushing for tariffs on imports into the US. So all of that is then putting pressure on the rand.
Yeah. Speaking of, what the US president has been doing, in fact, he's been doing quite a lot, if we're being honest. But, the USD remains a, what do you guys call it, a global benchmark for sort of, any shift in Federal Reserve policy. It tends to have ripple effects. What are we seeing here? Are we seeing any signs that dollar strength or weakness could dictate the trajectory of Lilangeni going forward?
Yeah, so the dollar is actually under pressure with all the changes, or rather the implementations of the changes that the president is bringing into the fore. I think now what markets are looking for is the economic data. So we're going back to the fundamentals. So if we are to see that the data that's going to come out is going to be weaker, then we expect the dollar to sort of lose a bit of ground. But if it's in support, then we might see the dollar, holding on to its power in the global market.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because some economies are dealing with persistent inflation. There's, others are adjusting to soft lending. So it's really interesting what this is telling us. But I want us to get into commodities, inflation hedges, as well as, supply chain realities. Gold's movement today, what is it telling us? Is this a reaction to inflation concerns again, or are markets adjusting to other economic realities?
All right, it's a couple of things. Firstly, I would assume it is sort of a correction. We've seen gold reaching highs of about 2,950 last week. Also due to the uncertainties in the market. So gold being a safer option, investors then pull towards it. But it could be that investors have locked in their profits and they've decided to sell their long positions, because we've seen quite a lot of buying into the dollar. But of late, we've seen this week the price sort of coming down. So it could be a sell-off of the dollar and investors locking in their profits. But at the same time, there's also the economic data as well. We have the personal consumption expenditure coming out on Friday, which is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge in the US. So investors are waiting to see what that is going to look like as well. So that will determine the movement that the price of gold continues to take.
Right.
But there is still hope for the price of gold to even go higher if central banks opt to buy gold, because normally they're the ones that push the price of gold up when they are building up their gold reserves.
Interesting. Well, a correction was what you're saying is happening with gold. Would the same apply for what we are seeing with oil prices ticking up slightly? Because, there is the ongoing supply chain constraints that are there. And, of course, the geopolitical tensions. Is this a correction here as well?
Yeah, so with oil, there's quite a number of things. Firstly, Oil has, as you can see, has gone up by 0.22%. One of the factors has been an industry report coming out of the U.S. that stockpiles in the U.S. have dropped, I think, about 640,000 barrels last week. So this means that there is a bit more demand and maybe limited supply. But with the geopolitical space, as you've mentioned, we have the U.S. pushing for a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. Yeah. We then would expect that that will lead to the sanctions against Russia being lifted, and then Russia being able to increase their supply. With an increased supply of oil then in the market, it means then the price of oil might then come down.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. But perhaps let's wrap up by looking at the equities of the day, investor sentiment there, as well as some market corrections, if there are any.
All right. So I'll start with the FTSE. So the FTSE is up 0.11%. Right. Key contributors there are the banking sector and the mining sector. Banking sector being the two banks being Lloyd as well as Metro Bank. Lloyd up 3.2% and Metro up 1.8%. Metro announced that they will be selling off some of their personal unsecured personal loan book, a portion of it. So that has sort of boosted their share price. And then from a mining perspective, we have one of the biggest producers of copper showing an increase in their share price as well. And that is, however, we have to be cautious because yesterday President Trump talk about starting a probe into the price of copper and the sanctions on copper. So we could see that sort of coming down. But the S&P 500 is significantly down, 0.47% today. So that is in line with just the pressure that the U.S. economy is in and the uncertainty that is happening. But later this afternoon, or this evening rather, our time, we expect the biggest chip manufacturer, NVIDIA, to release their first quarter earnings as well as forecasts. So that will definitely sort of influence or shape what the markets are going to look like from a U.S. stocks perspective.
Toba, thank you for your time. We've, I think, learned quite a lot. Inflationary pressures, of course, some market corrections there, as well as some lingering central bank effects that we continue to see. Thank you for staying with us on the program as well as our viewer. We hope that you have yourself a good afternoon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.